The Siege of Leningrad, 872 days where people ate. Wallpaper, paced to survive. Hitler didn't just want to capture this city, he issued direct orders to starve it out of existence entirely, rather than accept its surrender. For 872 days, over 2 million people were trapped inside with dwindling food, no heat through brutal Russian winters, and constant bombardment. People boiled leather belts for soup and scraped wallpaper paste off walls, specifically because it contained trace amounts of edible starch. Following Nazi Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in June of 1941, German forces advanced rapidly toward Leningrad, the Soviet Union's second-largest city and a location of genuine, significant strategic and symbolic importance given its status as the former imperial capital and its considerable industrial production capacity. And by September of 1941, German forces had successfully surrounded the city almost completely, cutting off virtually all conventional land-based supply routes and beginning what would become one of history's longest and most devastating military sieges. What made the siege genuinely, deliberately catastrophic beyond conventional military strategy was Adolf Hitler's own specific, documented directive regarding the city's intended fate, since German military leadership received direct orders not to accept any Soviet attempt to surrender the city, but instead to maintain the siege, specifically to starve Leningrad's population into complete destruction. A genuinely calculated policy of deliberate civilian starvation rather than conventional military conquest, reflecting the broader, considerably more extreme ideological objectives underlying Germany's Eastern campaign compared to its earlier military operations in Western Europe. The siege's specific human cost proved genuinely catastrophic almost immediately, since Leningrad's food supplies, already limited given the sheer scale of the trapped civilian population, dwindled rapidly as the encirclement continued, leading to a formal system of severely restricted rationing that, at the siege's most desperate points during the brutal winter of 1941 to 1942, provided some categories of civilian residents with daily bread rations amounting to barely a few hundred grams of bread that itself contained significant non-food filler material specifically added to stretch the city's severely limited actual flour supplies. The resulting mass starvation proved genuinely, devastatingly severe, with residents documented resorting to consuming genuinely desperate alternative food sources, including boiling leather goods, belts, and shoes specifically to extract whatever nutritional value the treated leather might still contain, and scraping wallpaper paste from walls throughout the city, since the specific paste commonly used contained potato starch or similar edible material that, however minimal its actual nutritional value, represented genuine, documented sustenance. Residents turned to as more conventional food sources became completely unavailable. Compounding the genuine, severe food crisis, Leningrad's residents faced the additional, sustained, brutal challenge of surviving Russia's harsh winter conditions with severely limited heating fuel, since the same supply disruption affecting food distribution similarly restricted the city's access to coal and other heating materials, meaning residents faced genuinely severe cold exposure throughout the siege's multiple winter periods, conditions that, combined with severe malnutrition, contributed directly to mass mortality from hypothermia and cold-related illness alongside starvation itself. The city's only sustained connection to unoccupied Soviet territory throughout much of the siege came through a genuinely precarious supply route across the frozen surface of Lake Ladoga during winter months, a route Soviet authorities and residents alike referred to as the Road of Life, which allowed limited but genuinely critical supplies to reach the city and allowed some civilian evacuation to occur, though this route itself remained genuinely dangerous, subject to German bombardment and the constant serious risk of ice breaking beneath the weight of transport vehicles attempting the dangerous winter crossing. The siege's cumulative death toll proved genuinely, catastrophically severe, with historians studying the period generally estimating that between 1 and 1.5 million civilians died during the siege's full duration, the overwhelming majority from starvation and related causes rather than direct military action. A death toll that establishes the Siege of Leningrad as one of the deadliest single events involving civilian populations in the entire Second World War, and among the deadliest sieges in recorded human history. Despite these genuinely catastrophic conditions, Leningrad's population and remaining Soviet military forces within the city maintained sustained resistance throughout the siege's full duration, continuing essential industrial production, supporting the broader Soviet war effort, even under these genuinely extreme circumstances, until Soviet forces finally succeeded in breaking the siege entirely in January of 1944, after 872 consecutive days of encirclement, formally ending one of the longest sustained sieges of any major city in modern military history. What makes the Siege of Leningrad endure as one of history's most significant and devastating military campaigns isn't simply its extraordinary duration. Remarkable as that specific length genuinely remains even by the standards of history's other significant sieges, but the specific, deliberately calculated nature of the suffering inflicted. A siege waged not merely to achieve conventional military conquest, but specifically, deliberately intended to starve an entire civilian population toward complete destruction. A genuinely severe demonstration of exactly how far a military campaign's underlying strategic objectives could extend beyond conventional warfare into calculated, sustained civilian atrocity. If stories like this, where an entire city's survival depended on sustained resistance against a siege specifically designed to starve it out of existence entirely, are exactly what you come here for, subscribe to the grave details, because history holds more stories like this than most people will ever know.